Who should you hire first, an executive assistant or someone else? We work with a lot of coaches and consultants, and oftentimes you hear the question, should I hire an assistant first or a salesperson or a junior coach or a project manager or a client success manager? So many different options out there. The answer comes down to this one point, which is how do we get you, the entrepreneur, freed as soon as possible? You are the number one asset in the business. You are the person who knows the most, has the greatest number of connections, has the greatest deal of experience. Maybe you're even the one who has credentials, whether that's a degree or a certification that's required to do what you do. And we need to get you doing the highest level work as often as possible inside of your business. So everything comes down to that one question. What is the shortest path to you being in your zone of genius as soon as possible, as often as possible? So let's take the comparison of executive assistant as your first hire or salesperson as your first hire. And everything I say here, you can apply the same logic to whether it's any other role, like a project manager, a junior coach, or someone else like that, okay? I'll just use the salesperson as an example. So first of all, what is faster and less expensive to hire? An executive assistant for $22 an hour or a salesperson for $75,000 a year plus? Assistant wins. Secondly, an hour is an hour is an hour. I've oftentimes heard stories of professional chief revenue officers being shocked and appalled when they find out that their salespeople mow their own lawn. Because for 22 bucks or 25 bucks, you can get a kid to come and do it when that sales professional is missing out on doing prospecting or missing out on following up with prospects because they don't have enough time, but here they are mowing their lawn or going to get groceries. Like, it's just completely an inappropriate use of time. So an hour is an hour is an hour. So you tell me what's easier to get off your plate. 1 hour of administrative tasks like sending invoices or uploading podcasts or blog posts, that real day-to-day assistant type stuff. What's easier to get off your plate, an hour of that? Or is it easier or harder to train a salesperson on your product, your process, your avatar, how to handle objections, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Again, the assistant comes out as way easier to get that first hour back for yourself. Now, on top of that, if you think about it, if you were to hire a salesperson first, if you are not already an outstanding salesperson yourself, you wouldn't know what kind of salesperson to hire because there are many, many, many different kinds of salespeople. Some are really good at selling services versus products. Some are really good at selling high ticket versus low ticket. Some are really good at inbound sales versus prospecting for sales. Some are more so your hunter type where they want to hunt down and close deals, and others are gatherer type salespeople. There are so many different kinds of salespeople. I've hired many of them in my career, and it is truly astonishing that it really, at the end of the day, comes down to you knowing what you want. If you don't already have that pretty buttoned up, it's a very dicey proposition. And I speak from experience because I thought I could just hire someone and they would figure it out for me. In fact, I even hired a sales recruiter to just figure it out for me. And they did a very poor job and ended up having 3 candidates in a row, 2 of which I hired. And it was a total failure, lost tons of money. Like, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars because I had not understood A, this kind of salesperson, B, what's the sales process that works best for our clients, C, what are the products and upsells that we could be offering, D, how do I train this salesperson, E, what dashboard of metrics should I be tracking, F, how often do I evaluate them and how do I give them coaching and guidance. That whole world of being effective as a sales manager effectively oftentimes requires us to get really good at sales first. And maybe not really, really good, but like pretty effective, that, you know, we can consistently make things happen and we understand why or why not certain sales are closing or are not closing. Another advantage to you staying the salesperson longer instead of replacing yourself there is you get to keep talking to clients. You get to find out what are their objections, what do they want, what do they want more of, what are your competitors doing that you're not but you should. You get to keep your finger on the pulse to know exactly what you need to be doing to develop your product or service better. And you may pick up on trends. For example, for us, we saw tons of changes with trends when the pandemic hit. Now all of a sudden everyone wants to work from home. Lots of people don't know how to work with people from home, and assistants didn't know how to be the employees from home either, or the contractors from home. So it's keeping your finger on the pulse so you know exactly how you can be the go-to authority in your industry. Now, one other note I'll make is that oftentimes an entrepreneur will say, well, I don't want to hire an assistant because they're not a revenue generating person in my business. A salesperson helps you generate revenue. A marketer helps me generate revenue. Maybe even the argument gets made that like a junior coach or a junior consultant, if I were to hire them, they can produce billable hours, but an assistant, nah, that's just extra expense. I understand that from a accounting perspective, that on your profit and loss, your income statement, you've got an expense line that your assistant will be impacting, and you can't really see your assistant making a difference on revenue. And I think that, because I know that I used to think that way, this is actually an inaccurate way to think about it. Yes, your assistant is an expense, will always be an expense. But the true bottom line is that your relationship with your assistant is one of the biggest profit centers you will ever have in your company. Why? Because your relationship with your assistant is what frees up your number one asset, which is you, to go focus on marketing, sales, doing high-end consulting, doing high-end coaching, creating new products, writing a book, being on your podcast, leading retreats if that's something that you do. Those are the surgeon in the room activities. And no matter how many nurses or phlebotomists you have in the metaphorical operating room of your business, of course, I'm speaking in examples and in metaphors here, you ultimately only have one surgeon. And we need that surgeon focused on one procedure and then to walk across the hallway to the next operating room. It needs to be already ready. Surgeon comes in and completes that task, doesn't clean up, just goes to the next room, executes. No setup, no teardown. And when a high performer on your team, and if you've got a small business, that's probably you, it does not matter how many nurses that we have, it's how many effective surgeons do we have doing surgeon work. And an assistant, you can have them making a difference in your business literally within 10 business days. It costs only $22 an hour. You're probably already doing the work that they will be doing for you, so you know how to teach and lead and evaluate and give them coaching and feedback and how to connect them to resources for learning, all of that. It's just so crystal clear for me after 9 years of having my own executive assistant and over 700 clients who we've helped to do the same, that it is a slam dunk. If you do not have an assistant, look no further, get an assistant first. That will free you up to then figure out the next hire. But the first hire, without exception, is an executive assistant. You can get them for just $22 an hour, for as little as 15 hours per week. We're talking like $1,500 a month at most, right? Just to get started, all the way up to full time if obviously you want to go full time. But it is a very easy entry point. And I will tell you that it will be the single biggest productivity jump of your entire career is getting an executive assistant. Hopefully that's helpful. This is Tim Francis from greatassistant.com, and I'll see you in the next video.